And welcome to today's Rowdy.com.
Okay, Marshall Mathers.
Welcome to today's Rowdy.com Big Three. I am Bass Masters. He is Buzz Cutler. We're still talking about NASCAR racing as we have been for the last 6 years.
It's been longer than that, hasn't it?
It might have been longer than that. What are your big issues now, day 2 after Bristol here?
Well, let's talk a little bit about Brian Vickers. He of the open heart. He says, yeah. Look, after his surgery, he's got a stent in his leg. He doesn't have a hole in his heart any longer. He said his doctors have cleared him to race. He's just got to wait for NASCAR to clear him to race. And as for his plans next year, or the plans of Red Bull next year, he's as in the dark as the rest of us. Here's what he had to say at Bristol.
Goes down. Like I said, I know what you know. Honestly, I read about it online. I didn't even know about it. I mean, Jay told me something was going to happen, but he didn't tell me what. And then I read an article. I can't remember who posted it, but that's really a question for Red Bull and Jay Fry. I have no idea, but I'm going to be in '83, and I'm very excited about it.
You know, Mark Gale pointed out to us on our podcast that if they were going to run 3 teams, you might have a sense of that already just because of movement preparing a bunch of guys to race there in a third team with a third team. So it's hard to imagine they're going to have 3 teams next year, isn't it?
A little bird told me over the weekend, and I don't have any verification of this, but I heard a rumor that there's a clause in Scott Speed's contract that says if he isn't ranked as high as 16th by the time the chase rolls around,
well, that ain't going to happen.
Red Bull could pull. Red Bull has an out. Now, that seems a little extreme. I think nobody expected him to rank as high as 16th, but I do think he's shown improvement. Red Bull has stuck by him for a really long time. It just seems odd to me that they would cut him loose this year.
Well, they're going to have Casey Kane, and if Brian Vickers can come back, then they're going to have Brian Vickers, are they not? So I don't really see what the option is other than spending the money that it requires to field a third team. And do you really need 3 teams with Red Bull on the car unless they can land another sponsor? So I think having 3 teams there, to me, it's less than 50% chance that's going to happen, which means it's a more than 50% chance that Scott Speed is done.
Say hello to the Nationwide Series, Mr. Speed. Now, you, for issue number 2, you're hankering to talk about Jamie McMurray.
I was wondering, after winning, obviously, the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400, we say to ourselves, I said, gosh, he almost won the Coca-Cola 600, and he almost won the Bristol Night Race. I went back and looked at the stats. Well, he almost won Darlington, too. If we had majors in NASCAR, Daytona 500, Brickyard 400, Coca-Cola 600, Southern 500, and certainly the Bristol Night Race would all have to be given great consideration for one of those slots. Jamie McMurray, first at Daytona, second at Darlington, second at Charlotte, first at the Brickyard, and third at Bristol. This guy can step up in the big races if he could just convince himself that some of these other races were big.
Stepping up in the big races is insufficient, Bass Masters. What do you do between those big races? Not enough in Jamie McMurray's case.
It's a lesson a lot of guys have to learn. It's not always the big finishes. It's those finishes between 10th and 20th. The top 20 finishes, when your car is a 25th place car and you get up to 18th, that you really need to figure out. If you look at McMurray's finishes between 5th and 20th, he's only got like 5 or 6 of those for the whole season. That's a big range.
Now he did say they're suffering from a lot of DNFs, and I haven't gone back to see how many of those were driver error, how many were mechanical error. But it doesn't matter, because even the races where he did finish, if he had just averaged top 15s, you pair those up with the finishes you just mentioned, he'd be in the chase.
He's had some other good finishes too. He was second at Talladega. I think Chicagoland he was 5th or had a top 5 there. He's been strong at more than just those places, but I think really the focus required to get those points that are available between 20th and 10th, that's something you got to do if you want to make the chase. Issue number 3.
Issue number 3. This past weekend at Bristol, there were some fireworks on Friday night when Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski got into it. Kyle says, yes, he punted Brad on purpose in the Nationwide Series race. And then the next night at driver introductions for the Cup race, Brad Keselowski grabbed the microphone and announced over the PA that Kyle Busch is an ass. So which one of those drivers deserves to be punished more? Kyle Busch for intentionally punting Brad Keselowski, or Brad Keselowski for uttering a profanity
You mean ass?
during driver introduction?
First of all, neither. I mean, Kyle Busch, look, if you bump and run a guy, we've said it many, many times. If you bump, you better run away. If you cannot get away from the guy who just bumped out of the way, he's going to come back, and he's either going to bump you, as Jimmy Johnson did to Kurt Busch at New Hampshire, or he's going to wreck you, as Kyle Busch did to Brad Keselowski at Bristol. And there's no two ways about it. There's no reason getting mad about it. If you move a guy out of the way, you put him up into the wall, he's going to wreck you.
Okay,
that's what happened. And
as for Brad Keselowski, though, because a few years ago, Junior got penalized for saying shit in a post-race interview.
You're telling me that shit is the same as ass. Ass is just as bad as shit. There's no way ass is as bad as shit.
Comes out of ass.
Yeah, but shit is a much worse word than ass. I mean, it's not like he said fuck, but he said shit, and shit is bad.
But shit is an acronym for ship high in transit. It's got nautical origins.
No, that's not true. At least ass, you could argue. If I call you an ass, at least I'm saying you're like a donkey, right?
Oh, and that's a good thing?
Sure, why not? I mean, it's not a word that should be banned. Shit, yes. Ass, no. All right, that's been your Rowdy. That has been your Rowdy.com big three.
Shut the fuck up, Bass.
For shithead Buzz Cutler.
For asshole Bass Masters.
We'll see you next time.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.